Hello, Mr. Wayne.
Hi, Todd. How you doing?
I can't hear you.
Should be able to.
Hello, everybody.
I can't hear you.
Now see if he can hear you.
Todd, can you hear me now? Todd? Todd can't hear me apparently.
Todd, hit your unmute button.
Hi, Lauren.
David, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Heather, how are you?
Hello, guys.
Oh,
Hello. I feel like sitting on the beach here. I think I'm gonna, instead of having a sewing machine in the back.
It's your band room.
Yeah, it is. I got a piano, guitar, drums, all going back there. So
So what do you play on the sewing machine?
use that for my rhythm session.
There you go.
hi, Julie.
Hey guys, how are you?
How are you?
I was frantic. I thought we were in person, and I'm like, oh God, I'm never gonna get there in time.
I dream of the days when we can all meet in person again.
I know. Next month, maybe. Do you think next month, Lori?
No, I think probably June. I believe that in the next 2 months, we will have some cases that will have a lot of public comment. And so we would not be able to maintain the social distancing aspect of meeting. Otherwise, we could start, but so I think it probably will be the June meeting.
That makes sense. I'm gonna be in Hawaii for like 5 months though, so I'll miss all that.
Where are you going to be, Julie?
I'm just kidding. I was saying I was gonna be in Hawaii for like 5 months to miss all that, Dave.
That sounds like a good idea.
Hawaii has internet, Julie.
The beach does not.
Your phone does.
Hey, Julie, do you need
Yes.
Do you need a new boyfriend? I'll go
Yes,
with you.
let's go. Let's go.
Okay.
I think we could talk Dave into going too. It sounds like he's pretty on par. In fact, let's do that meeting from Hawaii. Let's all go and we can have the meeting there in person. I think that's a great idea.
I like that idea. I think you should tell Chief Executive Gallagher that we need a little more travel money in our budget.
Somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I move that Tyler makes that motion.
Okay, I second that motion. And we're all in favor of it.
All in favor of it.
Lori, I see Liz Leahy on the screen. Do we know who that?
That's one of the cases, isn't it?
Yes, that's one of the applicants.
Yeah, Elizabeth and Timothy.
Okay, Elizabeth and Timothy, got it. We're going to have the 5 members tonight then?
Carol, is that all is that everybody here that we're gonna have? Oh,
Yeah.
there's Sylvia.
Okay. Hi, Sylvia.
Oh, you don't, sorry. Sylvia just joined, so are we? Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 7.
We have 7.
That's it. That's everybody.
Yeah, it looks like we don't have all of our applicants, maybe?
No, we just have Liz. We're missing.
Where's Liz in our
She's second. Who just signed on by telephone? Sorry.
Sylvia did.
Oh,
Okay.
well.
So Dave, I don't know if you want to go ahead and start the meeting and just move the second case to the beginning, and we'll see if we can get a hold of the other applicants to get on.
Do we know who phoned in?
The 9-7.
The 9?
It ends in 9-7.
Sylvia did.
That's Sylvia. Who's the other phone?
There. Right below Sylvia, there's,
The other phones are IT.
Oh, got it. Okay.
okay. No, Kathy says the one that ends in 9-7 is
That's
not.
that- That's Sylvia.
Okay, so she's got,
Sylvia had to call in for her to have her.
She doesn't have a microphone. I think she has to call in.
okay, so that's Sylvia. All right, then we have everybody. So it is now 5:30 on March the 18th, which is the advertised time and day for this virtual meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, which will be conducted virtually via WebEx. I will now call the meeting to order. I'd like to first of all introduce the planning staff, and you can see them in the upper right-hand corner. In the right is Lori Casey, the planning director, and next to her is Dylan Pipinich, assistant planning director. Carol Laird is also present. She will be recording the minutes of the meeting. The board members that are present are Tyler Schaefer, Todd Collins, Julie Jackshaw, Sylvia Cunningham, Lauren Burmeister, Garrett Craig, and myself, Dave Wing. I will be chairing the meeting tonight. So all 7 members are present for this particular meeting. The first matter that we need to consider are the minutes of the last meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes? And if so, would somebody care to make a motion to adopt the minutes and approve them?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the minutes of February 18th, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Would somebody second that motion?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman, even though I wasn't here.
Okay, that's fine. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Everybody in favor of that particular motion, just indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Wow.
Aye.
Everybody appears to be in favor of the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. They are therefore approved as written. First actual substantive motion on our agenda would be Aldo Vesco, number 2, but I do not see that he is present, but I do see that Liz Leahy is present. She would be second. So I will move her to the top of the meeting and we'll discuss her particular matter first. And that would be special use permit 21-4. Does the planning staff have a presentation with regard to that particular application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Get my screen up. So special use 21-4 is an application for a special use permit to locate a short-term rental in an existing residence per the requirements of section 1738-180. The applicants are proposing to rent out a 2-bedroom residence for short-term rental through online hosting programs. Here's an aerial photograph of the location. It's 17 North Alabama Street. It's a half a block north of West Park Street in Alabama on the corner of the alley. Staff findings: short-term rentals and tourist homes are recognized as special uses allowed, provided that the prescribed use is in harmony with other permitted uses in the zone and not to be contrary to the public interest. The process provides for review of public input, the measure of potential impact to the surrounding area, and the proposed use with the adjoining neighborhood. So the applicants went through the 20 questions review criteria, so did staff. Zoning district, it's an R3 zone. And here's some of the review criteria and some pictures. So like I said, it's an R3 zone. It's a single family home with a footprint of just over 1,000 square feet, and the subject parcel is 2,700 square feet. The location character of the property, surrounding buildings. It's, like I said, it's located 1/2 block north of West Park Street, and most of the area is single family homes and multifamily homes. As you can see in the picture, there is a tennis court located directly across the street. There haven't been any changes in the zoning ordinance in this area. As far as the comprehensive plan or the growth policy, this property is located in the Uptown Edge Place type. The Uptown Edge Place type neighborhood serve as transitional area immediately surrounding the Uptown core and exhibit a mix of commercial development and multifamily residential that connects the Uptown core with the economic drivers. So this is the place type that goes from your central business district to Montana Tech. Mixed residential and light commercial are typical of these areas, and that's kind of what we see in the neighborhood there now. Moving on with some of the criteria: proposed fencing, screening, and landscaping. They're not proposing to change anything. It's a pretty small house on a small lot, typical of anything uptown, and the landscaping, it's got a small yard and fence. It's very typical of the neighborhood. Vehicle access, it fronts Alabama Street, and there's an alley to the south. There's a garage located in the rear of the residence, and enough room for one on-street parking space. Handicap accessibility may be a concern. There are some stairs to the front of the residence, and staff feels that the applicant should state this in their listing so that if it's not accessible, that people know. Proposed signs and lighting. The municipal code does regulate the types of signs in residential areas. they're limited to in size and lighting and stuff like that. They're not proposed to install any lighting or any signs, and everything that's existing lighting is typical of a residential neighborhood. Potential nuisances, this tourist home is viewed as a commercial use, so any commercial use has a possibility of increasing traffic in the neighborhood, parking, noise issues. As far as these nuisances, as long as the occupancy level of the residence is in conformance with the building code, it should not increase traffic. So if the board remembers, the building code has a calculation of the occupancy load of a building based on its square footage. That's to keep it in line with other residential homes. So if you have a short-term rental, they don't, list 1,000 square foot home and say, can sleep 17 plus a rollout bed. They would have to stay in conformance with that occupancy determination. Parking, like I said, there's just one spot out front. It's parking is kind of tight in the neighborhood. There's a pretty higher density issues there, but it's no different than if it were to be long-term rental or long-term tenant there. And as far as noise goes, staff would suggest that the owner does enforce rules. These online hosting programs allow you to create rules, and they rate tenants and rate the homeowners and stuff like that, and they should be enforce some rules in regards to that as far as noise and curfews and stuff like that. Public health and safety. Butte-Silver Health Department regulations do licensing for these. They have providing rooms for rent. There's a public accommodations license where they go in and inspect, make sure you have enough fire extinguishers and stuff like that, and you meet their requirements. And again, I'm going to mention that occupancy level of the building to keep it in line with residential uses. One of the next criteria is that the use conforms to objectives of the adoptive comprehensive plan. The zoning ordinance permits these in any residential zone with special use permit, just to make sure that their plan doesn't negatively impact surrounding residences. And as I kind of touched on before, the comprehensive plan designation for this is Uptown Edge. This place type is a transitional area immediately around the uptown core, has a mix of light commercial and residential uses. This proposal is consistent with that place type and with the intent of the zoning ordinance. That the use or classification will not adversely affect nearby properties. In this case, the low impact commercial nature of the business and the owners limiting the number of occupants, staff feels that it would appear to have minimal impact, limiting that occupancy level that would be of a residential home for long-term use. The impact shouldn't be any different than if it was a long-term rental. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the zoning board of adjustment approve special use 21-4, provided the following conditions are met. Applicant shall be required to secure a state of Montana public accommodations license through the Butte-Silver Health Department. Any remodeling of the residence performed to accommodate the proposed business will require to meet all applicable building code and health code requirements as required by the Butte-Silver Building Code Department and the Butte-Silver Health Department, respectively. All necessary approvals must be granted prior to the applicant receiving final business license approval. The applicant shall deliver the occupancy level as determined by the Butte-Silver Building Code Department and the Butte-Silver Fire Marshal. The occupancy level shall be determined prior to business license approval. And the applicant will be limited specifically to the business as stated and approved. Any future business expansions, changes in business, or building expansions will require further review by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And that's all I had. I would welcome any questions from board members.
Do any board members have any questions of the staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Julie.
Mr. Pippin, do we have to be concerned with any kind of a noise issue with a rental property like this, or do you feel that that's not going to be an issue?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jackshaw, I kind of mentioned it in the report and in the presentation. There is some availability for enforcing rules with these, and I suggest that the applicants do have some rules in regards to noise. And they do live in town, so they are available to respond to that. But yeah, I mean, the short-term rentals do have the ability to create more noise than a long-term rental. I think that people care less when they're in somebody else's neighborhood than when they're in their neighborhood or they're out of town. So the potential is there, but we haven't had too many issues with any of the ones that have gone yet. We haven't had any complaints, and there is some ways for the owners to mitigate that. And I also do think that they rate the tenants. So when you go to rent on Airbnb or VRBO or something, not only does the place that's providing the rooms have a rating, but the tenants also have a rating, and you can choose to pick better tenants, I guess, too. So that's not a
Okay.
condition, but it's available.
Okay. Thank you, Dylan. Any other questions of the staff?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Yes.
Mr. Pipinich, what is the occupancy level for that particular property? It's just curiosity on my part.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Collins, I'm not really sure. Building code department would have to set it. It's based on the international residential code. It's like 1 per couple hundred square feet or something like that. The intent is just to keep it the same as all residential units, because these tend to have people lots of rollout beds and stuff like that. So,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pipinich. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Todd. Do any board members have any further questions of the staff? Not hearing any, I will now ask the applicant, and I understand it will be Liz Leahy, if she would care to provide any additional information to the board in support of the application. Can you hear me, Ms. Leahy?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time and for reviewing our application. I don't have any additional information to add. I can address the occupancy that we're planning on having. We have 2 queen beds and a crib available, so that will limit the occupancy of this specific property. And we're also planning to enforce rules: no smoking on the property, no pets or animals. We live half a mile away, so we're available to deal with any issues that arise as well.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any questions of the applicant? Okay, not hearing any, I will ask if anybody would care to speak in support of this application, and the number to call with regard to that support is 497-5009. And I believe that number is on your screen if you are also appearing virtually. Are there anybody out there that would care to speak in support of the application? And we will now give a minute or two to see if anybody phones in support of the application. Kathy is up here and she was sitting down and the chairs, Amner scooted away from her and came close to landing on her derriere. Nobody saw it and I didn't need to tell anybody. I apologize. No calls in support of the application. I will now ask if anybody would care to call in with objections to the application. And again, we will give a another minute or two to give people an opportunity to call in. And again, the number is 497-5009. Nobody is calling with regard to the application, either in support of it or in opposition to it. So I will now close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. Do any board members have any comments with regard to this particular application?
Mr. Chairman, this is Julie, and I
Yes,
think
Julie.
that the application is pretty well written out and thought out, and I feel like the applicant has taken into consideration our concerns, any concerns that I would have with the rentals. So I would make a motion to approve application special use 2104.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the application be approved. All in favor? Remember, we're appearing virtually, so you will have to sign your ballot, your voting ballot, and get it up to the planning staff one way or another, as you have before. But all in favor of the motion, I will kind of go through it one by one. Lauren, are you in favor? Lauren's in favor. Julie, it's your motion. I assume you're in favor. Garrett, do you have a vote? Garrett is also in favor of it. Todd, I don't see you, but are you in favor of it?
Yes, I am.
Sylvia, are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Okay. So have I covered everybody?
This is Tyler, Dave. I like it too. I'm good.
Tyler, I'm sorry to have forgotten you.
Okay. I'm
Guys,
easily forgotten and I don't mind that.
I am also in favor of the motion. So the vote should be 7 votes in favor of the motion and no votes in opposition to it. That means that the motion has been approved and the applicants will receive a letter from the planning staff to that effect. And good luck with your project, Ms. Leahy. Again, I will remind the board members that they need to sign this and get it up to the planning staff somehow. Thank you, Ms. Leahy, for appearing tonight.
Thank you
And
all.
good luck again with your project.
Thanks.
I see a Guy Vesco is on the screen now, and he would be the first, according to our agenda tonight, he would have been first. And Mr. Vesco, are you present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with regard to Mr. Vesco's application, special use application 1-2, does the board or does the staff have a presentation with regard to this application?
Vesco is on the screen now. And he
Can't
would
quite.
be first, according to our agenda tonight, he would have been first. And Mr. Vesco,
Yes.
are you present?
I am present, and I apologize that I wasn't here earlier. I didn't have a WebEx link.
Application. Special use.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Lori.
I think somebody has like their phone on and their computer or something. That's why we're getting the echo back and forth.
We are getting echo back and forth. It's been established that Mr. Vesco is present. He had been scheduled to be the first matter on the agenda, but because of his WebEx problems, we took the application of the Leahys first. And we'll now take Mr. Vesco's application. And I understand that the staff has a presentation with regard to that particular application. And we will now hear that presentation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So special use 21-2 is a special use permit to operate a professional business in an existing structure in a residential zone. The applicant is proposing to locate a counseling services office in an existing building in a residential zone. The proposed building was originally utilized as a detached garage, but was later utilized for a business office. Here's the location. It's on South Arizona Street and Row Road. It's across the street from Stoughton Park, or the golf course. Staff findings: professional business offices are recognized as special uses allowed in any residential zoning district, provided that the prescribed use is in harmony with other permitted uses in the zone and not contrary to the public interest. This provides for public input. And the applicant responded to the 20-question review, as did staff. Zoning district, it's in the R4 manufactured home zone. Notice that there is a commercial zone 1 block to the west. The location, character, and property of surrounding buildings. As I said, this is an R4 manufactured home zone, which allowed for single-family residences and manufactured homes. Building was constructed as a garage. You can see it in this picture here, but the garage door's been removed. It's been used as a business office in the past. The applicant currently uses the other structure, a house, as a rental unit. There's a paved parking lot in front of the structure that does not have parking lot striping. There's also a billboard on the structure. Location, character of property, the surrounding buildings. Like I said, it's across the street from the golf course. It's on Row Road, which is a pretty busy road. Property to the block to the west is a C2 community commercial zone. There are residential uses in the neighborhood. Substantial changes that occurred in the surrounding land uses since the adoption of the ordinance. There haven't been any changes since the zoning ordinance was adopted. The property in question is located in a suburban mixed place type in the comprehensive plan. That place type, these neighborhoods exhibit a mixed residential development pattern and are typically immediately adjacent to urban areas. In many instances, mixed neighborhood acts to buffer the more traditional established neighborhoods from higher intensity commercial uses. Proposed fencing, screening, and landscaping. Except for that paved parking lot, the current landscaping is typical of residential neighborhoods. It's lawn and shrubs, and it fits in with the surrounding homes. Applicant is proposing to maintain that landscaping. It should be noted that because they're not proposing to expand the footprint of the building, the zoning ordinance doesn't require any additional landscaping. There's an existing paved parking lot there adjacent to the structure. You can kind of see its entrance off of Row Road in this picture. The zoning ordinance requires 4 parking spaces to accommodate the proposed use of an office, one of which is required to meet ADA accessibility standards. Staff believes that the parking lot should be striped to meet these requirements. Signs and lighting. Again, these are the signs that are allowed in a residential zone. There is an off-premise sign or a billboard on site that had prior approval. The applicant does not intend to install any signage. Regarding the lighting, the existing lighting is typical of residential neighborhoods. Increased traffic in the neighborhood. These are some of the potential nuisances. This picture that you see up is looking south on South Arizona Street. And noise is another potential nuisance, kind of looking at the uses that are around the subject parcel and professional offices. It's a counseling services thing. They're pretty low impact as far as the type of use. And compared to what's around it, it should have minimal impact to the neighbors. Public health and safety. I did want to note that the applicant in their application stated that some remodeling has been completed to accommodate the use. There was not a building permit purchased from the building code department for any changes to the interior of the structure. Prior to a business license being issued for the proposed use, the applicant's going to need to get the necessary permits from the building code department for any of the completed changes or anything he's going to change in that building. They also have to adhere to all regulations regarding the occupancy level, just like always. The use conforms to the comprehensive plan. Again, as far as the zoning ordinance goes, these are allowed in any residential zone as long as they don't negatively impact the surrounding residences. And again, the comprehensive plan is the suburban mixed place type, and that's kind of a buffering area, and a low impact commercial use meets that intent and that goal. That the use will not adversely affect the nearby property. In regards to traffic, the parcel is served by railroad, carries quite a bit of traffic, and its proximity to higher intensity commercial uses suggests that I don't think the counseling services of a few clients per hour is going to significantly increase the traffic on railroad. As far as any potential increase in noise, it'll most likely not be the largest impact in the neighborhood. So it should also be minimal in that regard. In conclusion, staff recommends that the zoning board approve special use permit 21-2, provided the following conditions are met. Any sign placements shall be limited to section 1742B on-premise signs permitted in residential zones. Prior to receiving a business license, the applicant shall submit a parking plan for review and approval. The submitted parking plan shall meet the requirements of Chapter 1740 900 off-street parking table of minimum standards. Applicant must bond for the installation of the parking lot striping prior to final business license approval. Applicant shall submit a cost estimate from a licensed contractor for the materials and installation of the approved parking plan. This cost estimate will be used as the paving bond amount plus 10%. Bond can be in the form of cash, letter of credit, surety bond, certified check, or other guaranteed negotiable instrument. In order to reduce the potential negative impact of on-site lighting on adjacent residences, all lighting must be designated as low glare, be residential in character, and directed away from all adjacent residences. Any remodeling of the existing structure to accommodate the proposed business will be required to meet all applicable building code requirements as required by the Butte-Silver Building Code Department. All necessary approvals must be granted prior to the applicant receiving a business license. And the applicant will be limited specifically to the business as stated and approved. Any future business expansions, changes in business or building expansions will require further review by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And that concludes the presentation. I'd welcome any questions from the board.
Do any board members have any questions of the staff? Okay, not hearing any questions from the board to the staff. I will now give the applicant an opportunity to provide any additional information that he might have in support of the application. Do you have anything further to add, Mr. Vesco?
I'm sorry, I'm letting the echo quit before I start.
That's a good idea.
All right, it seemed to clear up there.
Not hearing any questions from the board to the staff, I will now give the applicant an opportunity to provide any additional information that he might have in support of the application. Do you have anything further to add, Mr. Vesco?
Well, the only thing that I could add is that
That's a good idea.
Mr.
okay,
Vesco.
so I'm really having trouble getting my words through to you.
Okay.
Mr. Vesco, do you happen to be streaming this live on your computer as well?
Okay, Mr. Vesco, you are streaming this live. It's causing.
Good idea. Mr. Vesco. I'm really having trouble with my words. Mr. Vesco, do you happen to be streaming this live on your computer?
Kathy, do you have any suggestions on how to fix that?
Is he, I mean, if he could turn off his live stream, it would help. It sounds like he must have muted himself or something. Does he want to call in on the call-in line?
That would be something that could be done. Mr. Vesco, if you can hear me, you could call in.
Yeah, the number's 497-5009.
Your best, if you can hear me, you can call in.
Press 1 at any time to be placed into the call queue.
I'm on the line now.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Hello there.
Hi.
Shut this down so you can't hear that echo. There we go. I'm sorry, it was just really hard for me to understand anything because I had so much of an echo through the whole thing. Yeah, I understand that. I use WebEx a lot, and it's really hard when all the mics aren't muted except for the one, right? But no, I not really. When I purchased this, when I originally purchased this property from Paul Tash, I was just led to believe that this was already a commercial zone. I don't know why. And then when I started, you know, looking into doing this and getting the work done on it, then I found out there was a lot more to it. So I apologize for that. I'm not really schooled in this and doing zoning or anything like this. It's my first real project. No, other than that, I just, you know, just want to utilize the property to, you know, to put a business and, you know, make some income. So that's what I'm here for. I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thanks a lot. Sure, I'll be here.
Proponents.
I'm sorry that call was dropped.
That's okay. Your part is done, Mr. Vesco, and we're now seeing if anybody would care to call in in support of your application. There are no calls in support of the application, so I will now ask if there were any opponents to the application, if they would phone in to express their opposition to 497-5009. There are no calls in opposition to the motion, so I will, in opposition to the application rather, so I will now close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. Do any board members have any comments with regard to this application?
I think it seems like a reasonable proposal for the location, being right across from the golf course. And from Row Road, it's probably not ideal for a residence right there. So I would be in support of it.
Okay, thank you.
I would as well.
Okay. Anybody care to make a motion in support of the application?
Mr. Chairman, this is Tyler. I would like to make a motion to approve special use 21-000002.
Thank you, Tyler.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the application, and now we will have to vote. And I see Sylvia first, so I'll ask Sylvia what her vote is with regard to this matter.
I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay, and Todd?
In favor.
Julie?
In favor.
Garrett? Garrett's in favor. He appears to be on mute. Okay, well, you're on mute, but if you just raise your hand if you're in support. Okay. Lauren?
I'm in favor.
Tyler? And Tyler's.
I'm in favor.
Okay. I myself am in favor of the motion, so that would be 7 votes in favor of the motion, which would mean that the application has been approved, subject to the conditions set forth by the staff. Mr. Vesco, you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect, and good luck with your project. And again, we have.
Thank you very much.
And board members, we again have to sign the voting ballot and get it to the planning staff somehow. Thank you, Mr. Vesco. The final matter that we have is the voting ballot indicates that it's variance application 21-2, but according to the agenda, well, we do have that problem. Oh, it's variance. Okay, I understand the confusion. The last one was special use permit, and this one is variance application. My mistake. So variance application number 21-2 by Michael Hanley and Maisie Seltzer is the next matter on our agenda. I see that Maisie Seltzer is present. Does the planning staff have a presentation with regard to this matter? Dylan?
Dylan, you're on mute.
You didn't hear me? I already went through the whole thing. Sorry.
Okay, I'll accept that.
So this is an application for a use variance to remodel an existing building into 7 residential apartment units and 1 office space, varying from permitted uses section of the municipal code. Applicants are requesting a use variance for their proposal to convert an existing building that was formerly used as an office warehouse facility into 7 residential loft apartments and 1 office space. These are not permitted uses in the CM zone, so they are asking for a use variance. They were granted a use variance for the same project in July of 2017, but since the project wasn't implemented within 1 year of approval, they need to come back to the board. So it's located on the corner of Aluminum in South Arizona. It's right across the street from S.J. Perry's. Staff findings. The Butte-Silver Municipal Code does not list this use as a permitted use. So the structure as a multifamily residence in the CM zone, a use variance is required. Use variances have 2 sub-criteria under the main criteria of hardship. Land in question cannot secure a reasonable return if it is only restricted to those permitted in the zone. And applicants must prove that the proposed use will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The zoning district, it's in the CM zone. It's across the street from a heavy industrial zone. There's a picture of the building. Planning staff reviewed the 3-point criteria established by the Supreme Court for granting.
Dylan, your screen's not showing if it's supposed to be.
Oh, well, that's an issue.
Okay.
Well, here's a picture. I can go back and so you can see the aerial photograph. And zoning districts, it's in the CM zone. It's across the street from a heavy industrial zone. And here's the building. So criteria number 1, a variance must not be contrary to the public interest. Zoning segregates land uses to prevent conflicts between incompatible land uses. As I said, this is within the CM zone. I referred to the warehouse district, and there's happens to be a lot of vacant buildings on this street in this area now. Although there's in a commercial and light industrial zone, like I said, it's across the street from a heavy industrial zone where a mixture of commercial and heavy industrial uses exist. There's several residences in the existing block, but most of the uses in the area are industrial, or there's some vacant buildings. It should be noted that there are several types of office space permitted in the CM zone, such as contracting, manufacturing, processing, and wholesale. Also, residential uses are permitted above the first floor in a C2 zone. So this would indicate that office space and residential uses are compatible with each other in certain scenarios in C2 commercial zones. In this instance, they're looking to add some windows and some doors, but they're not really changing the building. So it would maintain the warehouse's character. So while considering all these factors, planning staff feels that the residential development along with the office space would not be contrary to the public interest. Here's some more pictures. And just to note, it's just that 3-story building that's attached to that garage area, but that is not the same building. This is across the street in the industrial zone. So the second criteria is literal enforcement must result in hardship. So the property in question is a small parcel with complete coverage of the building and the warehouse constructed in 1910. Building and lot size is not conducive to house most permitted uses in the CM zoning district. Therefore, I do believe that there is a hardship. As far as criteria number 1, because of that hardship, it would most likely be difficult to rent this building out for a warehousing operation, something permitted in the zone. And criteria number 2, there'd be minimal exterior changes to the structure. So it's going to fit in the neighborhood aesthetically. The third criteria is the spirit of the zoning ordinance must be observed. One thing that's really important to mention here is the applicant must be mindful that they are residing in a CM zone and across the street from a heavy industrial zone. So the residential uses they don't get the same protections as they would in a residential zone. There may be increased noise, smells, traffic, other elements that are not compatible with this usage. So they might not be affecting the surrounding properties as much, but those properties could definitely affect them. However, the creation of these residential uses, as long as they understand that, shouldn't have an impact on the surrounding property owners, not a negative impact anyway. Here's some more pictures of the area. This is looking up South Arizona Street. One thing we should note here is parking. So the building it's 100% lot coverage. There's no room on this parcel for off-street parking. They're not expanding the size of the building, so they're not required to meet the parking ordinance. However, changing that use would increase the parking that would be needed. Residential units are required to supply 1.5 parking spaces per unit, and 4 for 4 office spaces if it were newly constructed. So the requirement would be 15 spaces, and there is not any off-street parking spaces there. And in some of the pictures, you can see there's a fair amount of on-street parking happening in the area. In addition of this many vehicles, if they need to accommodate 15 spaces, as the ordinance would suggest, could create some hazards in the area. This is kind of looking on west on East Aluminum Street. There's a vacant lot across the street. But as far as on-street parking and parking spaces that the applicants can physically provide is minimal. So continuing on with the third criteria, while there are some concerns about parking, staff acknowledges there's no room for off-street parking on the subject parcel, and therefore, including any uses that would be permitted, they wouldn't have enough parking either. Therefore, this use variance request appears to be reasonable use of private property, as long as the applicants understand that they're not owed the same protections zoning provides other residential uses in residential zoning districts. So with that, staff would recommend approval of variance 21-2 with the following conditions. The applicants must ensure that the construction and remodel of all facilities on the parcel are completed in compliance with all applicable building, electrical, mechanical, and fire codes. Applicants must secure all necessary permits from the Butte-Silver Bow and abide by all other regulations of the zoning ordinance. All plumbing and electrical work must be completed by a licensed plumber or electrician. Prior to the installation of any signs, the applicant shall submit a sign permit application to the planning department for review and approval. Prior to the operation of any business entity, the applicant shall receive a certificate of occupancy from the building department. The business shall purchase a BSB business license. And number 4, any future expansion of the other uses other than residential apartments, office, or permitted uses in the CM zone shall be subject to review and approval of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. With that, I'll wrap up the presentation and welcome any questions from the board.
Do any board members have any questions of the staff?
I do, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pippinich. I was kind of looking at the plan here, their plans, and it's not clear to me, and maybe you can just make it quick. Is there any apartments or living space planned for the basement?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Collins, you may want to ask the applicant. We would probably speak in more detail to that. I didn't notice any plans in the basement. It seems like that there's an office space on the first floor with a residential unit and then the other ones above.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pippinich. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Todd. Any other board members have any questions of the staff? Not hearing any further questions, the applicant now has an opportunity to provide further information to the board in support of the application if you care to do so. And I see that Maisie Seltzer is on my screen. So Ms. Seltzer, would you have any further information for the board?
Sure. I can address the question about the basement. There's no residential planned in the basement at this time, and probably not in the future either. So just there's 3 levels. So those 3 levels will have residential units. I just want to thank for the opportunity to present our project again. We approved in front of the board a few years ago when we first purchased the building because we wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to use the building as we wanted to before we purchased it 3 years ago. And so we're excited to be back and have the financing and everything that we need to get started. So between COVID and some EPA testing we had to have done on the building, we just got pushed back a bit. But we have since relocated to Butte from Billings, and we're excited to bring our architectural and construction business to Butte. So we're really looking forward to having this project as being a hallmark of what we plan to do more of in Butte.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Seltzer. Okay, well, I have to ask the board members if they have any questions. Yeah. You have a caller online. So if you have any questions, now's the time to the applicant.
Dave, I can't hear you. I don't know. I do have a question for the applicant.
Yes.
Maisie, have you guys thought about parking or where you'll have the folks that rent these spaces out where they'll be able to park? Will there be something for them there? Will they just park on street or?
Yeah, it will primarily be street parking. Now that we've been in town and we actually have security cameras set up on the building, we're able to sort of track activity in the neighborhood a little bit more. And it's pretty busy during the day, but it's actually pretty quiet in the evenings. And so I imagine that there'll be plenty of on-street parking for residents. There's at least 5 spaces around the building itself, which we think, will probably adequately cover what we'd need for the tenants. And then there's plenty of parking up the street. And I'm not really sure the parking kind of space, the parking, not really parking lot, but the vacant lot that's across the street from our building. It's not really clear where the curb and gutter is there, or where the entrance for that parking is. But, again, I think people could park across the street as well. And that's not used very frequently either. So I think there'll be adequate parking. It's our sort of experience that when people live in an urban environment, they expect to park on the street or just not have a dedicated parking space per se. So I think that mentality is a little bit more established when people are living in a more urban environment. But I do think there's plenty of on-street parking in the area.
Thank you.
Any other questions by board members to the applicant? Okay. Not hearing any. I will now ask if there's any public comment with regard to this particular matter. Be asking at this point, speaking in support of the application, continue. Speaking against the application, you'll have to opponents have first spoken. So there's a caller online. If you could please identify yourself by giving your name and address. Comments to the board.
Dave, I'm not sure your mic is working. I can't hear you. I don't know if others can hear you, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
There, you're working now.
Yeah, there's this thing that goes back and forth, and we got to make sure it's right here. So I'm now asking anybody in the public who cares to phone in and speak in support of this application to now do so. And when you do that, please identify yourself for the record by giving your name and address. So anybody that would care to speak in support of the application, please phone in and do so now. We do have a caller on the line, but we're not hearing anything from the caller. Do any members of the public, can you hear me, and do you care to speak in support of this application? It appears that we do have somebody on the line, but we're not really tracking with them. They're gone now. So are there any other members of the public that would care to speak in support of this application? We'll give a minute to respond. Okay. Not hearing anybody phoning in support of the application, I will now ask if there's anybody who would care to phone in and register any objections that they might have to the application. And once again, the number to call is 497-5009, And we'll again give a minute or two for phone calls to appear. No phone calls in opposition to the application, so I will now close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Julie, and I just want to say I think this is a great reuse of that building. I'm excited to see life in the neighborhood down there, and I think it's a great project for Butte. So I'm all in support of it.
I agree, Julie.
This is Lauren. I echo that. I guess the only concern I do have that I wouldn't put it in a motion or anything, but I just raise it so the applicant gives it some thought, is that empty lot is private property. I'm looking on cadastral right now, so it was probably warrants a conversation with that landowner. It's likely that your tenants are going to park there at least occasionally, if not regularly, and so out of respect, probably want to reach out to them. The other thing I would maybe encourage staff to talk to the applicant about, I don't know if it's going to be applicable or not, but this may be something you want to have the residential metals abatement program take a look at before they start the remodel. There may be impacts associated with that they could address before any remodel starts, and that would be to the benefit of all parties. So other than that, I think it's a great opportunity to bring some life back into this part of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's a great project for the area.
Okay. Would anybody care to make a motion in support of the application?
I'll make a motion to support the application. I don't have the number in front of me.
21-2 variance.
21-2 variance.
I would second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. We can now vote. We will once again, I'll start with Garrett. Garrett, are you in support of the motion?
I'm in support, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Julie, you're in
Yes.
support? Todd?
Yes, sir.
Lauren?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
And then that other guy, what's his name? Tyler.
I guess I'll get on board with this one.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, guys.
I also support the motion. So we have 7 votes in favor of the motion and no votes against it. So the motion has been approved and the application has also been approved, and the applicant will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. And I agree that it seems like a wonderful project, and I wish you the very best with regard to it. Thank you. Once again, we need to get the voting ballots to the planning staff as soon as possible, one way or another. Thank you. Lori, is there any further business?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have any other business, but since we have all 7 members, once you adjourn, I would like to go over with some of the changes that staff has made that affect our meetings. It will start in May. So you can go ahead and adjourn and then we can go over them.
I'll go ahead and adjourn the motion and give Lori an opportunity to discuss these matters with the board, if the board members could stay online. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and staff, one thing that we have come to realize as we're doing these and our workload is increasing is that staff doesn't have enough time. We only have less than 1 week to evaluate an application. And for those of you that have been on for some time, we've significantly reduced the number of applications that we're doing at night or each meeting. That's because we're doing a lot of education and really talking to people when they don't meet the criteria for a variance or special use. But we have found we've got 2 very lengthy applications coming before you in the next couple months. They're very lengthy and staff needs more time to review them. So what we decided to do, it doesn't it doesn't change your dates of the meeting, but what we did is extend out our application date. So now it has to be, we extended it another 2 weeks, so that would give us 3 weeks to review the application and make sure that we have all the information that we need in the report. And so the board may hear some of that, but it doesn't affect the meetings. We'll still meet once a month if we have agenda items, but that application deadline we did move. The other thing that we haven't always did that is in the ordinance is on special use permits. Staff actually has 15 days, working days or 15 days to review those. And once we have a complete application, once we have a complete application, we have 15 days to get it on the board's agenda. The board has 60 days to take action during that process, and that's by ordinance. And that's something that we have never used before, at least since I've been here. But I just want you to know that that's a tool that's available. We will be using probably the side of the applicant is application. If we don't have enough information, we will make that determination and start using that ordinance. Dave, as the chairman, was privy to a lot of back and forth emails that went on in the last couple of weeks. Particularly, we had a late application, and then as we went through it, it was an incomplete application. So in light of that has come forward, those are the reasons we made those changes. As the board reviews more of these applications, and some are significant, I want you to know that there is a tool also within your bylaws that it doesn't require that you make a decision the night of the hearing. You do have up to 40 days to make a decision. So as new members on the board, you may not be aware of that. So the board does have the availability and the option to ask for additional information before they make a decision, or if you need time to review all of the information, because you also only get the staff report a week before, sometimes 5 days before the hearing. So I just wanted to make sure, let you know that those tools are available, and also that you're aware of the changes that we're going to make that starting in May. We had given out some applications for our April meeting, so to be fair to everyone, we started the new deadline starting in May.
Thank you, Lori.
Lori, I have a question. So the how did the applicants, I mean, you've moved the application deadline, have you moved that back?
Yes.
So what was the original date? Is it always the same?
Yeah, the applications were due the first Wednesday of each month, and the board would hear them on the third Thursday of each month. So we've moved that application deadline back an additional 2 weeks.
So it would be the
So
third week before.
Yeah. For instance, the April meeting, to be on the May agenda, you have to have your application in by April 21st instead of that first week in May.
Okay. So in particular, and you know I'm very interested in this pulse energy application. Has that been turned in yet? Can you speak to that, please?
We don't have a complete application yet.
Okay, when is the deadline for that?
It will be March 31st.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, you're on mute.
I was just going to ask if there's any way for all of us to be in chambers, even though everybody else would call in, or
you know, that's something we can discuss with our IT. Kathy's up there. Dave, I don't know if she can answer that now, but we can look at that, Julie, if there's a way to do council chambers with the board, and then
Over to Kathy. Sit next to her.
I'll
try and shield her from the sun.
Yeah, really, the sun is bright. I mean, there's few enough of you that you'd probably be able to sit up here and still social distance and then just take calls from the, on call. So it's up to you how you guys want to proceed.
So Kathy, we wouldn't use WebEx necessarily for the applicants. We'd have them in the chambers.
You know, you could do whichever you wanted to. You could do the presentations like Dylan's doing them now and then have them call in, or we could use WebEx and have them just be on the WebEx and us, and you guys could be in the chambers.
Okay.
You're expecting to have, you know, pretty large ones.
Yeah, definitely the public input would probably be too large to maintain the social distancing. But if the board would rather be in chambers so that you can discuss amongst each other a little easier and do that, then we'll just need to know and we'll advertise it properly when that time comes.
I would be in favor of that.
I would too.
I would as well.
Okay. All right, we'll work with our IT and we'll make sure that we get it advertised properly then, and we'll, for our April meeting.
Thank you. I'm sorry to bring that up. Sometimes I can hear people and sometimes I can't, or it cuts out, or
Yeah.
for me, I'd much rather, if we're gonna especially have harder cases, I'd much rather be in person together.
Makes sense
I
to me.
agree. Okay. All right. I don't have anything else unless you guys have any questions, but I just wanted to make you aware of those changes.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
See you later.
Bye.